How we doing, lads? Sort of thought about this a little bit. Work's winding down at the moment. I've got more spare time now, so I might go back to some short episodes for the tutorial series, since some people have been asking me for some certain things, how to do some certain things. I know a big one was left shooting. Uber had a left shoot challenge. So in a soon to be coming episode, I'll show you how to left shoot. And more specifically today, I'm going to show you how to overstack. So what we'll do is we'll just get a multi-dispenser rig up. I might turn this into an actual cannon, I might not, depends how I feel. It's pretty easy to rig up like an OSRB into an overstacker, just by changing some timings around. But what we'll do is we'll go multi-M150, and we'll do some fairly standard timings here. So let's chuck that in. Of course, these are our powers. Ladders there. We're going to do two tick power separation. I'm just going to be using the power setup I'm using for my push OSRB that I'm using at the moment. So it's a fairly short range setup, but I need a quick hammer for it, so we're going to be using that today. So I think this is going to be our hammer here. So this is our second power going off 2 ticks after our first power, and we'll use, I think the ratio uses, I think it was 453 to stack 384. So what is that? 453 divided by 384, 1.17. So it's a fairly good ratio. Unclippable ratio as well. So what we'll do is we'll just go, let's go 453. And we'll stick our hammer there, which is 453, which is our bare minimum. We will be changing this hammer ratio around a little bit. So now we'll just set up our sand and our one roof. So I'll just pull that back just a little bit so I've got some more room to put in some timings. This is going to be our sand, of course, sand rendered after our hammer. And we'll just use we'll just use 100 sand. We don't need all this sand. The reason I say that is, more than anything, we're just testing timings and ratios here. We don't need to make sure that the cannon stacks 384 sand. Because hopefully you've tested already. I've tested this ratio already, hence why I'm only putting in like 100 sand. You can probably get away with like 20 or something, but in this case here I will be using 100. So we'll put in our one rev now. Multi-M1. So our one rev goes off 2.5 redstone ticks after our hammer. So what I'll do is I'm just going to put some repeaters here. I don't know if I said this, there was a bit of a weird quirk with these game tick setups. You do need that 4-tick repeater there. So I might have mentioned it when I talked about game ticks, I might not have. It's sort of, I don't know, and it's a weird quirk, but basically you need to have a 4 redstone tick repeater before you have like your game tick mechanism like this. Like if you have a button and you go straight into a one of those double sticky piston redstone block setups, I think it just does 2 redstone ticks instead of 2.5, but if you put a 4-tick repeater in front, then it'll do 2.5. Anyway, so we want this going off 1 redstone tick, or 1 game tick, sorry, before our hammer. So our hammer is going off at 4, 6, 10, so we want this to go off at 9.5. Currently have it going off at 4, 6.5, so we'll just add another 3-tick repeater here. That's 4 ticks, but I'll fix that now. And this should be our very, very first little ratio here. So hopefully this will just fire at the wall and then stack on said wall. And then I'll show you how to start messing around with your hammer ratio to get something to overstack. So we'll TNT fill that. I think I filled sand. I did fill sand, sweet. And we'll just use block 36 just to keep everything as an entity. And now we can just fire it, hopefully. Yep. Just make sure it all works, and if it doesn't, I'll try and find out what's wrong with it. There we go. So you can see it is stacking 1 below barrel height here. One thing that I will mention with an overstacker is at first when you are testing ratios like this, you don't really need to worry about your one-shot sand. I usually put in a piece of sand that goes off super late with my hammer power, just as like the sand that sits on top of the overstack hammer really. So what we'll do is we will just go like this, and we'll just rig up. This is just going to be a random piece of sand. And basically what we're going to be doing with that piece of sand is making sure we get a ratio that swings our sand up. So it's sort of the opposite of a OSRV when you were swinging your one-shot sand down, I believe. In this case here, what you're actually looking for is to swing your one-shot sand up. So we'll fire that too far. And we're just going to keep an eye on that top sand there and see what that top sand does. So you can see here it gets instantly stacked down. And that's most likely because our ratio for our hammer is going to be swinging everything down. I'm just going to take the sand out just so I can use red sand here instead. So it's a bit easier to differentiate between the two. We'll just put that back in. And we will go multi-M45. We did have 453 hammer. We're going to push it one up to 454. So where's our hammer? That's our hammer just there. So we'll swap that out to 454 hammer now. See that there? That little bounce, that's what we want to overstack. So that's what you're looking for, and basically you're going to keep pushing your hammer ratio up. You should only need like at most 4 extra TNT for your hammer to get a ratio like that. Sometimes you'll get lucky, sometimes you'll get it straight off the bat. Other times you might need 4 more pieces of TNT. But generally you shouldn't need more than 4 pieces of TNT to get one of those ratios to swing up. Alright, so now that we have our ratio that swings up, we're going to be using OOE stacking here to stack our overstack sand on top of our sand stack here. So we have that upswing ratio now. So what we can do is we might change this dispenser here. We might make this our overstack sand. So what we'll do is we'll just go multi-M. I'm just going to put in 10, and then I'll work it back when I find an overstack amount that I like. So what we can do here is we'll fill this with red sand. So now I've got 10 red sand that's going to be flying up on top of the wall. And so our overstacker here is going to need 4 key components after we have our sand, 1 rev, hammer all in place. So the first thing we're going to need is something called a stopper, which basically will stop the velocity of the upswing ratio from the hammer at a certain point. We need our overstack hammer, which will actually be using the OOE stacking to stack the overstack sand back down. We need our overstack sand, which in this case here will be this sand here, and we also need our one-shot sand, which will just stack on top of the sand stack, so you get a nice full sand stack. So what we'll do from here is we can just rig up. I feel like rigging up. Let's do our let's do the splitter first. Actually, no, let's do the hammer first. So generally in a situation like this where we're just using swing to boost the sand up, you don't have a very high velocity, so you need your overstack hammer a fair bit delayed. So what I'll do is I'll just go multi-M30. Just went with 30 TNT there, so I know I've got a decent amount, and I will work that down later if needed. And I'm just going to be making that go off before or after our overstack sand here. I won't really worry about timings too much now. I'll just sort of see where that hammer explodes up there, and I might just add 2 more redstone ticks to that. Should make it 3. I'll just wire it straight off that. I'll add 2 more redstone. Yeah, 2 more redstone ticks to that, and we'll just fire that again, and we'll see if we can get that into a place where I think it's nice. We'll get a decent overstack amount there. Yeah, so you can see it's swinging up a fair bit there. So if we say we're happy with the height, this is personally how I do it. This might overstack 6 or something. If you want to overstack more sand, delay your hammer more. If you want to overstack less, delay it less. But of course, due to gravity, it will be slowing down. So the longer you leave it, it might start falling down. So there will be an optimal point where you can overstack. So what we'll do from here now is we can wire up our splitter. So our splitter in 1.8, I believe it went 1 game tick before the went one game tick before the overstack hammer. In this version here, to get like an unclippable overstack ratio. But this is the best way that I found to do it. So instead of it being one game tick, I make that splitter go off 3 game ticks before, and it works at most Y levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wire it straight off our little game tick setup here that I'm using for my one roof, and we'll just count to our overstack hammer down the bottom there. So we're going 4, 6, 8, 12, 16. So our overstack hammer is going off at 16. So what we're going to do from here is we're just going to count these up, and we want it to go 1.5 redstone ticks before our and go 1.5 redstone ticks before our overstack hammer there. So we've got that going off at 16, so therefore we want this going off at 14.5. So it's currently doing 6.5, 7.5, 8, 9, 10.5, and then 12, 13, 14.5. Just putting that repeater there just so I don't actually power that from somewhere else. So we'll just wire that back up, and we'll see if this actually works. So hopefully what it's going to do is it's just going to cancel the velocity and not stack. Great, thank you. I'm just going to put some water on it, see if it was just not working because of the water there. I don't see this red sand going in, and I would most likely say that is because, yeah, I didn't expect that to be the issue, to be honest, because I haven't got this like wired up and timed out correctly, I don't think, but it is the issue. One thing that I will note here, because we are using OE stacking, we want our overstack sand here to go after our splitter, but before our hammer. So currently we have the overstack sand going before our OSRB hammer, I think. Yep. So any time in that 1.5 redstone tick interval between our overstack, or our splitter going off and our overstack hammer going off, we want our overstack sand to be rendered. So what we'll do is I'm just going to do this quick and dirty, just like that, and then I'll make that 2 redstone ticks there, and then I'm just going to remove 1 from there. So now it's going just before. I don't want to go in just before our splitter, I want it going just after our splitter. What am I doing? 1, 2, and then I'm just going to reset that back to 3 there. We'll see if this works now, and if we are overstacking. There we go. So you can see we get that nice little overstack at the top there. And what we can do from here is we can just add in a piece of one-shot sand basically, and then we can start messing around with our overstack hammer ratio to get a downswing ratio for our one-shot sand. Another thing that I will say here is you can OSRB off your overstack hammer. That's entirely possible. I've done it for a few cannons. Usually it's more popular to OSRB then overstack using the swing from your OSRB hammer. But basically to overstack you need upward swing, and to OSRB you need downward swing. So yeah, sort of it. And that's our gravel there, just going off into Narnia. So I would most likely say here, in this case, it's a rendering issue as well. I'm just going to slap another couple more ticks on that because I was trying to sort of OE stack like the sand there. But there we go. You can see now that's popping up. So I mean technically you could overstack off that as well. You don't really want to. I haven't really found any uses for cannons that overstack over and over and over. Not yet at least. But what we'll do from here is we're just going to start working our overstack hammer down. So it's currently on 30 TNT. It's way too much. So I might just take it down to 10 and just see if it works on 10 TNT. and then I'll start playing around with the ratio to get this to stack the one-shot sand on top. Sorry. That looks alright. You can see that the one-shot sand there did end up breaking, so we'll just go to 11, and we'll try that on 11 now. And eventually you will find there's going to be, like I was talking about with the hammer, there's like that 4 sand interval or something. Usually, sometimes you get really unlucky and you get a bad ratio, and you can't actually stack that. Overstack sand. But if that's the case, you can just try messing around with some of the timings for something else that's going up now. If this doesn't work, I'll be kind of sad. And what I'll do then is I'll start playing around with some of the other timings, just to see if I can get that to go on top. Yeah. So we'll fire that again. And we'll see now if it works. Okay, so it's still breaking. So what I might do here is I'm just going to add a redstone tick to our... I might actually take one away. I'm going to take away a redstone tick to our overstack hammer there. And in turn that means I need to take a redstone tick away from our splitter and our overstack sand. And we'll see if we can get anything off this ratio as well. Might be overstacking a little bit less. But there you go, you can actually see it stacking on top there. And I might just add 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we'll just play around with this, and this should be overstacking a little bit higher now. And yeah, that's sort of it. This ratio, I think it's pretty good, especially if you are using that 1.5 game tick thing. It should work at most Y levels. No one's really found a good way to get an overstack ratio for this version yet that works on every single Y level. But you can see there it's overstacking all the way to the top there. It's probably because I've got a protection block there as well though. So I'm just going to put a non-protection block there, and we'll just work it down until we find where it's not working. Like I say, the bottom 2 blocks won't work for this 1.5 game tick ratio, but I'm pretty sure everything else works pretty nicely actually. Anyway, we'll just drop it back down by 1 there, and we'll just put some water in, and fire again. There you go, it's a dead spot there. So you will get these spots in your cannon where you've got sort of dead spots where it'll just refuse to stack. There's another one. So again, that's pretty much down to ratios. It's much the same with OSRB based stuff as well. And there's just destroying the wall. Yeah, it's much the same with OSRB as well, where certain, almost all OSRB ratios will clip. There'll be a couple of really nice overstack ratios, where it will work really nicely. But what is going on now? I don't know how that broke. But for the looks of it, this one's a pretty bad ratio. Fortunately, there's not too much you can do except for just try a new ratio basically. And yeah, that's sort of it. That's what happens when you mess up your rendering. Just had my one-shot sand there going off a bit too early. There you go, so that's might actually not have enough overstack hammer to be honest. Just gonna go to 20 and just see if that stacks a little bit higher. Doesn't look like it, but also looks like a bad ratio. So yeah, this will be sort of the case here. You will need to play around a lot with ratios. Of course, you can game tick your hammer. You can try changing your splitter, delay, maybe sometimes splitter amount. There's a fair bit of stuff you can play around with this. You just need to make sure you do get that order of entities right, where you needs to go splitter, overstack sand, overstack hammer, one-shot sand, and then you'll get that sometimes nice little overstack pattern there. But yeah, that's sort of it for this video. I might do lefting later. Haven't decided on a date yet. It's probably just going to be when I can be bothered. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed and hopefully you learned something new, and I'll catch you a bit later.